The biopic of one of NBA's legendary, iconic basketball players of all time is being developed at Warner Brothers, and it will center around the time he was drafted into the NBA. And also, who would want to have a horrible boss? Well, it seems that Charlie Day of Horrible Bosses 1 and 2 wants to reprise his role in Horrible Bosses 3, and Jennifer Aniston is also very interested in coming back. And last but not the least, with low patronage in cinemas, particularly in this part of our world, Africa, it seems that more and more cinemas are following the business model of cinemas in the West, where they are showing pre-feature ads on the screen before the movies are shown. Well, how would that affect cinema in Africa? I'll be talking about all these stories and more right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Paapa Otu. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions both from the African front and the international scene. And thanks for joining me for this particular episode of the Film Mandate. So we'll be delving into the story of one of NBA's iconic basketball players of all time, of blessed memory. Unfortunately, he passed on in a dreadful incident involving him and his daughter. And we are talking about none other than the great Kobe Bryant. Well, before he became a basketball player, obviously, there's been people way ahead of him. And one thing about the sport of basketball, even if you have no idea as to who may be what in basketball, there are some that stand so tall that regardless of your knowledge of the sport or not, you get to know who they are. And some are Michael Jordan, the Magic Johnson, the Larry Birds, the Abdul Jamal, and so many others. Well, Kobe Bryant is one of them that stands out so tall, just as you have the Steph Curry and then all the names in the game. Well, with his passing and all, the sport and the world was hit so much, and it did, break our hearts for losing him so young. And we would have loved to have him live on and be such a wonderful. I mean, being such a wonderful person he is, keep on with the game of sport. And for those who particularly may have known, he did start a sporting league, I think called the Black Mamba, where his daughter was actually a player in the team. Well, we are fortunate that now Warner Brothers is said to be developing a story with regards to the very moment he was drafted into the NBA. And therefore, let's go to Variety and read an article that details those events. And the article says that Kobe Bryant's movie in the works. Warner Brothers nabbed spec script about Lakers stars' dramatic draft day, and this is written by Matt Donnelly and J. Kim Murphy. And there in your short is Kobe Bryant. So Warner Brothers Pictures has acquired a spec script based on the dramatic true story of NBA legend Kobe Bryant. Joining the Los Angeles Lakers, Variety has confirmed. The project comes from screenwriters Alex Sohn and Gavin Johansson. Rumors of the project had piqued the interest of multiple studios and streamers. One source told Variety that Warner Brothers preempted an auction and took the script, tentatively titled with the eighth pick, off the table early. Sarthora and Religion of Sports will produce the project. Curiously, Bryant was taken by the Charlotte Hornets with the 13th pick in the 1996 NBA draft, not the 8th pick. The Hornets then traded Bryant to the Lakers for Vlad Divac. The New Jersey Nets and its general manager John Nash had the eighth pick. Nash has previously said that he wanted to draft Bryant with the pick, but was overruled by Nets coach John Calipari. So other insiders familiar with the script described the film as Moneyball meets Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's recent feature detailing nice courtship of a rookie year Michael Jordan. Warner Brothers had no comments when asked about the project. Bryant played 20 seasons with the Lakers, winning 5 championships, including a three-peat in the early aughts alongside Shaquille O'Neal and coach Phil Jackson. He was an 18-time All-Star and was named the league's MVP for the 2007 to 2008 season. He retired from professional basketball in 2016 at the age of 37. In January 2020, Bryant died in a helicopter crash along with 8 other passengers, including his daughter Gianna. Son and Johansson are rep by Verve Talent and literary agency. The former is managed by Lit, the Zeman Group, and latter by Gotham Group. And the E. Snyder first reported this news of the Bryant script. So yeah, some iconic sports personalities loom so large that, just as I said earlier on, if you don't even know much about sports like myself, as I don't, you get to know about them, you get to hear about them. And the sports world has some people who stand out so tall, and he's one of them. Just as the article said, all-time, all-star time, champion. And one other thing too is that he was actually into filmmaking as well. But regardless, I think the idea of a story being made about him is very interesting. And from the article that I just read, it looks like they would be approaching the story from the angle of like Moneyball, which starred Matt Damon, and also which we had Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in that movie. And Moneyball actually starred Brad Pitt, pardon me. But the interesting aspect of this story is that then it means that with the treatment of Moneyball was based on true facts, but it was handled loosely with the facts so that they can tell the story in a very dramatic way, and almost approached it from almost like a true representation of what transpired during the time of Michael Jordan in his rookie year. So it looks like they'll be approaching it from them, blending the two of them. And I think to have a legend like Kobe Bryant, who has done so much for the sport, just as other greats have done, it's worth it to tell his story. And I don't know much, I'll be honest, I don't know much about the era of his draft pick, but I think from the details that you have provided, it looks like there was a lot of drama that transpired around the time of his pick. And the one thing I can attest to is the fact that this will be a cinematic hit, provided it's told well. And him being such iconic of a character or of a human being and a sports personality that he was, is definitely going to pique the interest of so many people. I myself, my interest in this particular project is piqued because he is such a charismatic human being, a loving person. I mean, I don't know him personally though, but I must say, but from the look of who he is such a wonderful person. I've watched a couple of interviews that he participated in, and his knowledge of everything is massive. I remember watching a story about Bruce Lee, and he knew so much about Bruce Lee. He knew also the martial arts. So that is how vast of a knowledge he has actually beyond his field. And I'm glad that a story is being told about him. And I don't know how soon, because the details as to what the story is about is not really known, except for the fact that it's based around the time of his draft pick. But as it stands now, so the time it will be released or not, we do not know, because currently it's just a spec script, so it's likely they're going to develop it further. As to how soon that will transpire, we do not know. But it looks like Warner Brothers had so much interest in it that instead of waiting for it to go into a full-fledged auction bid, they just quickly took the script off the table so that they can oversee it and have it developed further. As to whether the estate of Kobe Bryant is involved in the development of the story, that we do not know. It was not stated in the article. And Warner Brothers has not commented on whether, I mean, as to their involvement in this particular production. But that I can tell that it will interest a lot of people to want to know, for especially in this new generation who do not know much, and for those who don't know much about how he was drafted into the NBA. I think that will be quite an interesting. And every story that is told involves a lot of drama, and I'm sure there are some aspects of if you read it, it involved a number of teams who wanted him. Unfortunately, I think the Nets had to trade him to Lakers for another player. So I'm sure what went on behind the scenes that we may not be aware of would all be revealed in the story. And as to whether they will do a truthful representation of the stories, that I do not know, because of the angle where they will be coming from with regards to the Moneyball project, which played a little bit loose with the true facts, just to tell a very dramatic, emotional, moving story. So I guess we would have to wait to find out more what the writers and Warner Brothers have in store for us with regards to the biopic concerning this iconic legend that is Kobe Bryant. And personally, I'm sold on it already. I'm just hoping that it gets into the hands of a legendary or a good director who can really tell the story so impactfully for people to really see the beginnings of this great icon who left us, unfortunately, so soon. And I'm interested in this. Let me know what you think about this particular development with regards to a biopic being greenlit concerning Kobe Bryant, one of the NBA's, I would say in general, basketball legend that ever graced the earth. And leave your thoughts in the comments section below. So moving on from the legendary Kobe Bryant, I'm sure one way or the other, all of us have had encounters with bosses that have been horrible. Mostly some have been good, some too have been horrible. And if you ever wanted to find how comedic such real life experiences can be portrayed, then I'm sure you might have watched Horrible Bosses 1 or 2. And with the advent of particularly Naked Gun, that starred Liam Neeson, it looks like this kind of comedy in theaters is being sought after nowadays, even with Charlie Day, who happened to have been one of the stars in the Horrible Bosses, has expressed interest in coming back and wants more and more comedy to return to the cinemas. Well, in the Hollywood Reporter, it is reported that not only him, but also Jennifer Aniston has expressed interest in returning to the franchise. So it says that Charlie Day would be up for third Horrible Bosses film, has had conversations about it. The It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia actor is aligned with Jennifer Aniston, who recently expressed their desire to return to the R-rated franchise. And is written by Hilary Lewis. And that is Charlie Day and Jennifer Aniston, who acted as the horrible boss to him in the previous franchise. And it says that though Charlie Day and Jennifer Aniston's characters were often at odds in the Horrible Bosses films, they are both aligned in wanting a third film in the R-rated comedy franchise. After Aniston recently revealed that she wants to revisit the project, the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia actor told the Hollywood Reporter that he too absolutely absolutely would be up for another Horrible Bosses film. In addition, speaking to THR at a recent New York screening of his latest movie, Honey Don't, now in theaters, they said that he had some conversations about it with some people involved in front and behind the camera, suggesting that his and Aniston's desire to return to the project might be more than ideal speculation. He added, "We'll see. Hopefully, there's an appetite at the studio." They referenced the new Naked Gun film in expressing his support for theatrical comedies. "I just saw the Naked Gun and it was so fun to be in a theater with comedy with a capital C. I'd love to do a third one," he said, of the Horrible Bosses series. "Hopefully we get to do it." In June, Aniston told People that Horrible Bosses is the project she'd be most interested in revisiting. "Jason Bateman and I were talking about that, and Charlie Day has been talking about it a lot too," Aniston said of the franchise. "So that's something that we think would be super fun." She added, "The characters are hilarious and we need comedy. I personally think comedy is a necessity. That's one that we would have a really fun time. I think going back to seeing where those crazy cats are today." Aniston also looked back lovingly on the franchise in a recent video interview with Vanity Fair for its rewatch series, recalling how she fought for her character's brunette locks. "I wanted my character to look different. The argument from the studio and I am sorry to call you out, was that we are just afraid it won't look like you, and I said, that's kind of the point. I still think it might look a little bit like me. But I'm glad I fought for it and stuck to my guns." The two films, released in 2011 and 2014, Aniston said, helped her shed her girl next door image. "I was always sort of seen as a girl next door, the ingenue," she said. "It was really fun to play somebody like this because it's so far away from anything that I am. And I think that's what the director liked. This is so not what you would expect from this girl. That was the fun of it. I think that's what made it more creatively exciting for me, obviously." The first Horrible Bosses film, released over the summer in 2011, was directed by Seth Gordon from a script by Michael Markowitz, John Francis Daley, and Jonathan Goldstein. And in addition to Aniston, Day and Bateman starred Jason Sudeikis, Kevin Spacey, Colin Farrell, and Jamie Foxx. The film follows three friends, Day, Bateman, and Sudeikis, who scheme to murder their awful bosses. The original grossed nearly $210 million worldwide on a $35 million budget. The 2014 sequel, directed by Sean Anders, from a script by Anders, John Morris, Goldstein, and Daly, saw most of the original stars return and added Chris Pine and Christoph Waltz. But that movie, released over the Thanksgiving corridor in 2014, didn't perform as well as the box office, grossing nearly $108 million worldwide from a $42 million budget. So, yeah. So there's a lot to expect currently with regards to this particular film. And I must say, I did watch the Horrible Bosses, and it's one of the franchises you will really have a lot of laughs at. And nowadays, it looks like most comedies don't have their time in the cinemas as they do. I think it looks like a lot of these comedic movies are actually made for the streaming services and not the cinemas as we would have loved it to be. But unfortunately, most of them don't perform as well as the big studios would have hoped, and therefore it ends up being pushed into the streaming services. However, with the advent of the Naked Gun, well, performing relatively good, it's whipping up a lot of interest to go back into the cinemas for this particular kinds of comedy. And it looks like Charlie Day, who is one of the stars of the movie, has expressed interest in really coming back. And I'm sure a lot of conversation with this conversations ongoing, it possibly means that they've been talking about this for quite some time, and I'm sure they are working on a concept or an idea that would best work for the Horrible Bosses 3. As to whether it will be greenlit is another story altogether, but I think if they find the right story, I'm sure the studio will be willing to put in the money and the necessary mechanism to get it working as soon as possible. The challenge would be is that would it perform better than the second one, and at what budget would they use in producing the movie? Because looking at how the first one performed, over of a 35 budget, over 200 million, and now it dropped. Studios may be a little jittery or scared to, go in that vein, because one of the things that most productions have to go through is not just the production budget, but it also would have to, you have to also put up a marketing budget, which most often than not will revolve around half, 1/3 or half of the production budget to push it to the public. So it is quite dicey, but I think with Naked Gun performing the way they, let me even check how much Naked Gun made currently, and then see how this seems like a possibility now. So box office for Naked Gun, let me check what it did. So yeah, so the Naked Gun so far has made $86.4 million. Yeah, so it has made $86.4 million, and the budget is around 42 million. So it's sort of doubled its budget, and which is quite good. So I'm sure if it's priced moderately in terms of the budget for Naked Horrible Bosses 3, perhaps the studio might consider actually producing it. And I think in this world that we find ourselves in, it would be nice to have a lot of laughs nowadays. The world is not as joyful as it used to be. And I think Naked Gun, from the commercials itself, it brought in a lot of laughter and joy. And it followed in the same vein as the previous series that preceded it. And I think that is quite an interesting thing to do. As to whether it will be produced moderately, that is the problem, because a lot of films now from the big studios, the budgets keep skyrocketing, and you have less and less people going to the cinemas to watch some of these films. And I think if the studios sort of moderate, approach it with less caution, and with much caution, and then reduce the budget enough to suit their production, I'm sure they would be interested in producing it. And hopefully, if it's much better of a concept that would interest people will go to the cinemas and watch. So I, for one, I'm interested. I don't know about you. Let me know what you think. Do you think having Horrible Bosses 3 in itself is necessary? And if it is, would you be interested in watching it? Can you leave your thoughts in the comment section down below? So talking about films in the cinemas and whether people go and watch the films, the question has always been that it looks like more and more people are not attending cinemas as previously they used to. And with that challenge, as some of these chains of cinemas are facing, they've also found alternative ways of generating necessary funding in order to stay, solvent. And one of the ways they found to accrue money is to show adverts or commercials in the cinema before the movies are shown. And most cinemas across the world are doing that. I remember going to the cinema to watch a film, and it was the same thing. Years ago, it wasn't the same, in Africa or in Ghana in particular. And I think I could understand why, because cinemas now has low patronage than it used to be. Previously, a lot of films the pre-pandemic era, a lot of films did well, particularly if the story is good and had good word of mouth. But now even good movies are not performing the same way as they used to be before the pandemic. And there is a report currently that more and more cinemas are expanding the time for showing the commercials before the movies are shown. And this seems to be a worrying trend because I remember watching a lot of film pundits who have been complaining about that not complaining, but they themselves, having been into the cinemas, have complained, and also their viewers also have been, tuning in and complaining about this habit, particularly when cinemas are stating the time for screening being a particular time, and yet when you go at that same time, you realize that they, instead of showing the film just as they have said, they spend that time screening the commercials before the movie, and that has become a worrying trend. And I think with time, some of the things that people have been advocating for is that tell us when the commercials will start before the film also screens. Well, the question I've been asking myself is that will that, on the Western front, in the West, like in America and other places, I know things are structured in a way that I'm sure soon enough, whatever necessary compromise both the cinemas and the audiences have to find that middle ground, will be able to solve that out. The challenge for a lot of African cinema is that the patronage is low. Particularly in Ghana here, the patronage for the cinemas is low, and I'm beginning to realize that even the cinemas in Ghana are doing the same. And seeing what is happening in the West at the moment, I won't be surprised that same will happen here, where instead of showing just a couple, maybe 2 commercials, they may even extend it further. A report has it that as much as 30 minutes worth of commercials are being shown in the cinemas in the West. Here, the last time I went to the cinema, I think they only showed about 3 commercials, and that was it. My question is that with the challenge that the West is facing right now, if that same thing happens here, are we going to even go at all? Because currently, as it stands, a lot of people don't even go to the cinemas as it should be. They go to the cinemas, being very picky, particularly with movies that has their interest. And the challenge has always been the time factor. If they keep on showing these commercials before screening the movies, would people even take interest in going at all? That is the challenge. And for a place like Africa, where money sometimes may be hard to come by, and yes, for a group of people, they would be able to afford. For the middle to high income class, they can afford it easily. But for the lower income class, who may also be interested but may not have the money to go, and time is of essence to them, would they even be able to go to the cinemas at all? Yes, partly the funding this cinemas, or the income, the revenue that these cinemas will get from the commercials will help them, because then that will be additional funding to help keep the cinema running. But the other factor may also be that hopefully, I'm hoping they don't extend it, but if they should extend the commercial time to about 30 minutes, how would that, help them? Because that may hurt them more than helping them, as more people may think that going to the cinema is a waste of time, instead of going to the cinema and having the film screened at the time they said it will be screened. I'm sure they will prefer to use that time wisely to work rather than spend it in the cinema. So it is really a challenge, because not just, some of the stories I've been hearing is that a lot of cinemas are closing down recently, and I think there are a lot more which will be closing down before the year ends, and that is a worrying trend. And it has been a challenge, because not only are the cinemas contending with themselves, like as in other cinemas, but there's also contention between the cinemas and or rather competition between the cinemas and the streaming services, because at the end of the day, just as we, because of the pandemic, a lot of people have been trained on day and date releases. They know that if I should wait a little bit more, soon enough, some of these the films will drop on the streaming services, and there will be no need for me to go to the cinema to spend that hard-earned money. Because I already pay for maybe a subscription for a streaming service. So that's the conversation that may be going on. So it is a challenge, especially with cinema tickets. Some of them shooting high. Rising higher, and others also not being the best. Particularly if you go to the cinema and the films are not even good enough. What becomes of people who may think that they are going to spend their money and find it worth it and realize that the film they watched wasn't even good enough. So my thinking about it all is that how is it going to affect cinema? The films in Africa or the industry in Africa. Will this thing really impact it positively or negatively? And it's a challenge. I'm not able to. The challenge is that, unfortunately for our industry here, there's a lot of data not made available for the necessary decision to be made by stakeholders one way or the other. But I think one way they can go about it is to make sure that they do not overextend the time slot for the commercials, and see to it that the time for starting the screening will be quite early than later. So that may in turn help them in their business. But then it's something we will never know, because most of these decisions are made without considering the audience who come to the cinema and patronize their services. And that has been a challenge. For Africa, already we have less cinemas, and the cinemas now are also adapting this model, which I perfectly understand. But then they would have to make sure that they are cautious not to abuse the trust of the patrons and then end up losing them in the long run. Well, so this is a story I wanted to handle. There's a video I would have loved to show, but I think because of rights issue, I didn't want to show. But let me know your experience, if you've ever been to the cinema before and have encountered such. Were you okay with the commercials that were shown before the screening, or you think that should be completely abandoned? Whatever your thought is, kindly leave it in the comment section below. So with today being a Monday, obviously, I'm sure over the weekend you had opportunity to either go to the cinema to watch a film, or if you didn't, well, as usual, every Monday I bring up the box office performance of some of the movies that screened over the weekend for us to take a look at. So beginning from the North American box office over this particular weekend that passed, we have K-pop Demon Hunters, which, though having a limited release by Netflix, has made $18 million. And that is over 1,700 cinemas. Pardon me, my voice is a little troubling me this time around. Pardon me for that. We have Weapons, which has dropped from 1 to number 2, and it has made 15.6 million and a total of 115,880,823 in the domestic US, the North American domestic box office. And number 3, you have Freaky Friday, which dropped from number 2, and it has made 9.2 million and a total of 70,540,708. And number 4, and still have remained at number 4, is the Fantastic Four First Steps, and has made 5.9 million and a total domestic of 251,951 dollars. And number 5, and still at number 5 is the Bad Guys 2, and that's made 5.1 million, and a total domestic of $66,178,030. And number 6, dropping from number 3, is Nobody 2, and that's made $3.7 million, and a total domestic of $16,546,585. And number 7, and dropping from number 6, is Superman, which has made $3,430,000, and a total domestic of $346,975,181. And number 8 is The Naked Gun, which has made $2,950,000, and a total domestic of $47,563,349. And number 9, you have Honey Don't, which stars Charlie Day, as we read in the article. It has made $2,950,000 in its first weekend. And the last one we'll be talking about is the number 10th one, which is the Jurassic World Rebirth, and it has made $2.1 million, and a total domestic of $335,579,810. So there's still more on the list that I'll leave in the description below for you to check it out. So moving on from the domestic box office, let's check out the worldwide box office and see how the movies are performing. So the 2025 worldwide box office, the top 10, Nizar 2, which has made $1,901,425,268. Number 2, we have Lilo and Stitch, which has also made $1,030,562,425. Number 3, we have a Minecraft movie with $955,149,195. And number 4, we have Jurassic World Rebirth, and it has made $844,140,810. And number 5 is How to Train Your Dragon with $626,824,310. And number 6, we have Superman, which has made $604,475,181. Number 7, we have F1 the movie with $603,408,240. And number 8, you have Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning with $597,913,515. And number 9, we have The Fantastic Four: First Steps with $490,051,951. And last but not the least of the top 10, we have Captain America: Brave New World with $415,101,577. So there you have it, the top 10 box office receipts worldwide, both from the domestic, worldwide, and also top 10 of the domestic North American box office. So all too soon, I have to bring this to a close, and thank you so much for joining me. Pardon me, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm trying to get this done quickly. So I'll be coming your way again, and thanks for joining me for this episode. But I'll come your way again with another exciting episode tomorrow, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. My name is Paapa, and I'll see you soon.